A proud native of Brooklyn, New York, John found a love for basketball at an early age. He accepted a basketball scholarship to Georgia Tech to play for legendary head coach Bobby Cremins. From there, Sally went on to become a 15-year NBA veteran and was the first NBA player to win 4 championships with 3 different teams. After his retirement from the NBA in 2000, Sally explored several opportunities in both television and film. John's film credits include Bad Boys 1 and 2, Eddie, and Gary Bruckheimer's Confession of a Shopaholic. John spent 7 years serving as the co-host of the Emmy-nominated, critically acclaimed The Best Damn Sports Show, period, on Fox Sports Net. He was also the host of the sports talk show Ballers on BET. John is the head of his own production company, John Sally Presents Incorporated, where he uses his uncanny ability to find unique and interesting people and projects for film, television, and internet. John is actively involved with Operation Smile, PETA, and the fight against diabetes. In addition, John is involved with PCRM and visited Washington speaking to Congress about the Child Nutrition Act, asking members to support legislation that would increase vegetarian options in meals served in public schools. John has adopted a plant-based, raw vegan lifestyle and is a frequent speaker at veg fests across the USA. As a wellness advocate, one of John's main missions in life is to continue to educate people on the benefits of living a healthier lifestyle through better eating habits. Most can achieve a goal and be pleasantly satisfied with the results, but to continually create new tasks to accomplish and to reinvent yourself is the mark of a versatile and motivated individual. It is the definition of a father, athlete, actor, entrepreneur, talk show host, philanthropist, wellness advocate, vegan, and champion. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I introduce to you our moderator, John Sally.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. That was a great intro, Crystal, just like I wrote it. Thank you very much. That was really long, and I'm glad we got that point out. But I'm very excited to be amongst you women. I'd rather be in the company of women. Obviously, you guys are smarter than men, and this is going to prove it. It's definitely going to prove it. I only have daughters. I have 4 daughters, so I obviously know I only make smart people. So let's start off with 6 of the smartest people I know. Dr. Rose Blackburn, president of Morehouse School of Medicine, National Alumni Association. Hello, Dr. Blackburn. Miko Branch, co-founder and CEO of Mrs. Jessie's product for curly hair. Hello, Miko. I need a whole bunch of product. I have a lot of natural hair in the family.
Hey, John.
Carrie Connor, vice president of Nike Jordan brand, which I used to wear, and I think you should send me some 15s.
Hi, John, talk to me.
Yeah, I got you. Irish Grant, senior director of philanthropy and development at Morehouse School of Medicine. Can't wait for you to have me there so I can speak to people about plant-based diet.
Absolutely.
Roberta Shields, CEO of Ludacris Foundation. And he's not throwing any elbows. He's doing the foundation's doing some unbelievable things. It always has. And Melinda Wright, senior program officer of the Walton Family Foundation, not to be confused with the Walmart Foundation. They just own that business. The Family Foundation is entirely different. When I was with Walmart, we had a thing called First Tee, and they would play golf, and we would raise money. I didn't play golf, so I just stayed and got massage. But I work with that foundation. So ladies, women, thank you for being on this show. All right, so let's get started because people are sitting around wondering what we're talking about, and we're talking about philanthropy. And for those who understand, it's not just I gave at the office or I gave whatever. This is something that's constant. This is something that it should be a part of your business. This is literally 20 to 30% of your business. It's 35% of your taxable income. So make sure you pay attention when they talk philanthropy. Not only can you give from your heart, you can also give from your taxes. I just thought I'd drop that in there for those who don't know. All right, so we're gonna start with our first question. And this question is going to go out to Ms. Blackburn, Ms. Connor, Ms. Branch, and Ms. Shields. So one of you four, I would like you to answer this question. Maybe we start off with Ms. Shields first, okay? The conversation this evening is focused on women in philanthropy. Can you define philanthropy? Ms. Shields. You got to take your phone, you got to take it off of mute. That little red thing. There we go.
Okay. There you go. Philanthropy to me is the passion to help others. And I think with our community, I think that it's not new to us, it's true to who we are. As young people, we put $1 in the mission. And as my son says, as his popularity grew, he wanted to do more for others. So I think it's reaching back and giving back from wherever you are, for whatever means that you have. I think the most beautiful thing a lady said to us, she was a recipient of one of our little Christmases, and she said, Miss Roberta, may God continue to bless you so you can continue to bless us. And to me, that's what philanthropy is the passion to help others.
Thank you. Dr. Blackburn.
Yeah, I think that, and I think that's a great question. As a physician, I grew up wanting to help people. So having that as kind of my mission is to help people. So professionally, that was, I had that giving service mindset. I grew up in a household where my parents are professionals, but they were in government and nonprofit. We were involved in civil rights and other giving in church. So giving every Sunday in church was just part of what we do. And then now as an adult, I'm a tither. So getting your money and your values aligned, I see as philanthropy. Mission driven, I align with a lot of organizations that I'm passionate about, like Morehouse and others, my church and other organizations that are giving and of service. So really aligning your passions with your work and with your money, you make a difference.
Okay. Mrs. Connor, you got it. Yeah.
Yep. Spacebar. I learned that today, right?
You got that.
Yes. When I think about defining philanthropy, honestly, I would echo what the lady said, but also when I think about it, there's 3 words, and it's really about how do you show love back? And really just showing love back and making sure that we're improving human welfare and we're improving other people's circumstances. And so, when you think about it, it's not just money, but that is a big part of it. It's giving of your time, it's giving of your resources. And when you think about it, and really stop and think about it, there's so much that we can do in our daily life events that really does embody philanthropy. So I try to do that in everything I do at work, and excited to have this conversation with everybody today.
Okay. Mrs. Branch, last one. I think you got to take your mute off. There we go.
Sorry, John. Philanthropy for me it's giving, and it's giving with your heart, it's giving with your mind, and it's giving with your resources without wanting anything back in return. And I think from the early, from the start, I come from a long lineage of women who helped each other, who really supported one another in what they were doing. And from those women came the children. And one of the kids that were produced from that group of women was my dad. And my dad, Jimmy Branch, he put my sister and I in a position to be able to be independent women, to be able to provide for ourselves, where we could not only help ourselves, but help other people should we be blessed with the fruits of our labor. Luckily, my sister and I were able to partner together, create a wonderful hair care business, but giving was always on our minds. So when we discovered that our hair, the hair that God gave us, was the most beautiful thing, the most versatile thing, giving for us in philanthropy came in the form of sharing information, sharing the knowledge that our hair could do anything. So we did the unthinkable. And we took our hats off as salon owners and stylists and really shared information to women about what their hair can do, how to care for it. And little did we know that we would really change the idea, the beauty standard and the beauty ideas that we had about ourselves, particularly in this country. So philanthropy came from a place, a good place of giving, a good place of sharing. And with that giving, we helped empower these women to help themselves with their hair, but they also helped us to create and build our business. So by the time we found some financial success, we were able to do things like give to Morehouse and support the United Negro Fund and things like that. The New York Urban League, we were in a position to give. And I think giving is so very much a part of what we do. It still continues to be. So, you'll see Miss Jessie's, any and everywhere we can be, where we're continuing to help people, whether it's through product or whether it's through, any of the resources that we have that we're able to share.
Thank you, Mrs. Branch. Dr. Blackburn, what in your life inspired you to get involved with philanthropy or involved with social initiatives?
As I mentioned, I come from a civil rights family. So I grew up in NAACP. I always wanted to be a physician. So I tried to align that. I still work on the NAACP National Health Committee. And I became a physician after going to Morehouse School of Medicine. So their mission is aligned with improving health access and health equity. So I just spent my life trying to align all of my values and have a career that was of service. That's part of it. And then just my passion for Morehouse and giving to Morehouse came out of, I remember being a student with no money. Sometimes we live, instead of living from paycheck to paycheck, we live loan check to loan check. So I know what that's like for students. You're about to eventually make a good salary, but the years getting to that are lean, and you're in your 20s, so you feel like you're too old to keep asking your parents for money. So we depended a lot on each other. So and so I want to give back. I want students not to have that burden like I did. As I said, I give a lot at church. So just wanting to help others, this passion for wanting to give. And I know who mentioned about giving of your time. When I didn't have money, I had time and I had ideas. So I volunteered a lot growing up in different organizations. So now I have the opportunity to give back. So I really believe in the scripture of to whom much is given, much is expected. So I kind of align my work and my spare time around activities and around people that are in a giving spirit.
That's wonderful. Yes. Thank you for that wonderful answer. Okay, so Mrs. Wright and Mrs. Grant, I'm going to ask you two a question right now. It's been said that women and men think differently. And I have to agree. I live in a house of 7 women, and there's a lot of thoughts going on in there. And the only other male is my puppy, and he listens to them. So if we do think differently, I'm pretty sure we give differently. Tell us the difference. Let's start with you, Ms. Grant.
We absolutely do. I will state that statistically, women give 80 to 90% more than men, not only across generation lines, but across the distribution of wealth and income. Women give more. And I believe that because we have such a passion as nurturers. We are multitask runners with family and life and jobs and caregivers and independent. And it shows across the generational gaps that we give, and we give very differently. We give from our passion, but we have a tendency to give more and more often. And that's not to downcast what the gentlemen do in any way, but I do believe that it is our ability to nurture and to in our personal lives, even in our professional lives, the manner by which we give is just multiplied because of what we do. So I know that it's 70% of global giving is given by individuals, but the majority of that, a little more over than 50%, are women and females that give in charity and philanthropic perspective. So we are not only caretakers of our homes and our families, but we're caretakers of the world. And for those who don't have a voice or have opportunity, we are the key to that.
Okay. Mrs. Wright?
Yeah, thanks for that, Iris. And John, I echo everything you said. And one thing that stuck out in my mind is that while women don't get paid as much, we do tend to give more. So highlighting that. And also I noted in doing some reading on this, that we tend to give to organizations that benefit women and girls specifically. And I think that's inherently because we have an understanding of the lived experience of being a woman. I also wanted to share 2 data points that I think might tie into why we give more to women and girls that I came across this week that were pretty powerful for me. The first was that of the nearly 70 billion yearly foundation giving, only 0.5% of that is specifically dedicated to supporting women and girls of color. And that basically equates to about $5.48 per year for each woman or girl of color in the US. And then the other number that really struck me was that more than 45,000 organizations dedicated to women and girls receive a total of 6.3 billion in charitable contributions from foundations, corporations, and individuals. This is in 2016, so it's a little dated, but these organizations comprise actually a relatively small portion of charitable organizations. So I share that to say, again, that I think our giving to ourselves is really benefiting us.
Where are you reading that from? So we can reference it.
Yeah, I read there's an organization called Women Moving Millions that I just came across, and they recently created a report that shares a lot of data about women giving and as well as how philanthropy impacts giving to women and girls of color.
Okay, so I'm going to stay with you, Ms. Wright. And I'm going to go. So this question is going to go to Mrs. Shields, Mrs. Connor, Mrs. Wright, but we'll start with you since you were on. Each of you represent a different organization and a different perspective. How did you being a woman of color affect the final decision?
Yeah, I love this question. I've been thinking about this. So as I mentioned, I work with the Walton Family Foundation, and I would say Walton has been rooted in equity as a foundation from its start. What I will say though, in light of COVID and in light of the Floyd protest and much of the social unrest, we had to take a hard look within and look at our strategy and ask ourselves the question of whether or not our strategy is truly rooted in equity in a way that would push for meaningful change. As we asked that question, I, as a leader on the team, started thinking about this question of proximity, meaning, are we actually working to situate resources and capacity with people who are best positioned to solve the problem? Said differently, when we think about communities that we work with, I think for a long time, many foundations would sort of go in with a top-down approach. Here's our solution, here's dollars to execute our solution. And instead we've tried to revamp and say, you know what, let's think about this differently. Actually, you have the lived experience, you actually know the best solutions. So let's actually situate resources with you so that you are leading and designing your own solutions. So I won't labor more. The last thing I'll add is, to that end, we started thinking about if we could work on a project with Black foundations to expand our network, Black founded and led, to start a project or initiative where we could raise capital for Black entrepreneurs. So.
All right. Cool, that's dope. So I'm gonna make sure I get in touch with you after I have this Black foundation. It's called Give Me All the Black Money. And I'll spread it. Give me all the money and I'll spread it to who needs to get it. Mrs. Connor, what do you think? I'm going to re-ask the question. You represent different organizations, and your perspective, what has been the difference, you being a leader, woman of color, with the outcome?
Yeah, I mean, as a woman and a woman of color, being in the corporate world, for me, it's been more about, how do I use my power and my influence? And so It makes me think about when I took my first sales director role with Jordan Brand, it was in New York City. And I was getting inundated with calls every single day from retail partners. And all they wanted was, I need more retro. I need more Air Jordans to sell in my stores. You have to give it to me. You have to give it to me. And I took that moment as a time to say, you know what? It's time to flip the conversation. And I turned the conversation back on those retail partners and said, hey, you know what? Instead of talking about, how do you get more retros and how do you get more Air Jordans to sell, let's talk about how can we serve the communities where you sit and where you lie. I want to partner with you on that. I want to partner with you on how do you partner with organizations in your community? How do you fund initiatives? How do you give back and show love back? And so that is something that I used my power and influence as a Black woman, understanding and seeing what was happening in these underserved communities where all my retail partners were sitting. And I knew from a business perspective, my strategies were set, we were good, but we had more work to do on the front of just making sure that our communities were in a better place. And overall, I will say, I was happy to see that the calls kind of dwindled away, and it was more about calls on how do we partner, because they saw that we all win when our communities win. And so, you think about it from the way I lead, some could say, the feminine traits of leadership are more collaborative than they are competitive. But I think in the nature of being collaborative and being in that way to want to achieve a common goal, we were able to, make change. We were able to create and make impact. And that's really what it's all about. So, power and influence is important, but you have to use it for the right reasons.
Dope. Okay, Mrs. Shields, the same question. Okay, can she hear me? You gotta get that mute button.
Yeah, someone keeps muting me. So what I want to say is what's instilled in you as a woman, and when you lead as a result of your voice maybe not being heard at the table. And so for me, it was making sure that I thought very strategically. I was valued my voice. And as you said, building things collaboratively, but relationship building, women are very good at that. My father always told me, you can do whatever you want to do. And so I've taken that, and then, my foundation, my son's foundation, it is his vision. I implement against it. And with that, it's always about building the business case as I approach an organization, because I think that there's value in giving in your community, just as you had communicated, and that value we want to see. So we want to do business with those individuals that are doing business with us, letting our communities know that those businesses care about what's going in our communities. And for me, it is making sure that I am building relationships with those organizations that are in need, whether it's APS, whether it's the Rec Center, whether it's the Boys and Girls Club, and also having good relations with Walton Foundation, Jordan Foundation, the Nike brand, and bringing those two pieces together to show how we can do more and let our community know we care about them.
Okay, cool. This question is going to go to Dr. Blackburn and Mrs. Grant. With all the unknown variables going on in politics and social, the social climate, what are some of the challenges that prohibit women from giving?
Well, I think we've established that women are the bigger givers. So I think what may prohibit women from giving more is we still don't make equal salaries to men on the dollar. So I think advocating for equal pay and pay that's commensurate with our talent and skill set will advance women and advance their giving. So we've established women are already out giving everybody. But I think having pay equity, career advancement opportunities will push women to give more and to be more influential. But we've established that we are givers, even with making less, and doing more, we give more. So I think we, as women, we should advocate for pay, salary, career advancement consistently and relentlessly, so that our giving can advance with us.
Yeah, it's a trip you say that, because women only make 42% of what a man makes in the same position, and it's 2020, and it's been like that. It's been like that since the beginning of time. Well, since they started letting women work in the open market. So that is a trip that it's even at that point. And like Miss Miko Brandt said, I'm gonna start my own business and pay myself I do that with my daughters. I mandatorily make them become entrepreneurs. That way I don't have to hear your bad day at work. Okay, so this question is going to go to Mrs. Shields. Oh wait, did I let Miss Grant? Miss Grant, do you want to answer that question for me?
I agree and concur with Dr. Blackburn. I think that some of the challenges that would normally stop the male gender from giving, if it is income, I think women pivot great in times of challenge, right? We're used to being able to pivot. We have the strength. And so I think that women will universally find other ways to give, right? I think that if finance is a barrier, that women will come through with being able to volunteer. They'll come through with giving time and talent as much as they do treasure, because we are so agile. So I think that the challenges that we meet as women, regardless of our socioeconomic variables, I think women are going to come through for the need, right, in their community. And so maybe they financially may not be able to give or write that check that they normally do, but they're going to be sensitive to the children in the neighborhood. They're going to be sensitive to the young professionals or their coworkers, right? And so they're going to find other ways to meet those challenges, which are just as important. But I do believe that the financial crisis that we may be upon, if we have to shut down again, right? If the political climate is what it is, I think the women are going to lead the way in how we write that narrative and how we engage, because we've got single parent families, incomes that are going away. We have, rise in numbers right now with COVID-19. And the reality is that that taxation and burden is on the nonprofit organizations. And it is incumbent upon us to figure that out. And so I think that women are going to be the leaders in that when the monetary perspectives are dismantled.
Yeah, I do believe the future is female, and we got to remember that. So this question is to Mrs. Shields, Mrs. Connor, Mrs. Branch. We're going to start with you, Mrs. Branch. You mind if I call you Miko?
Oh, sure.
Okay, Mrs. Branch. As a woman of color, what is your personal approach to impact investing, and how does it differ from your male counterpart or your colleagues?
I'm not really sure what the men or the males are doing. I know for me, mostly all that I do has everything to do with what's meaningful. In terms of giving, whether it's philanthropy or whether it's investing, I try to align myself with things that share similar values to what I believe in, how I'm feeling about things. It doesn't always turn out that way, but for the most part, I really try to do the right thing and do good things with my giving, with my investing. My mother and I sat down the other day as I become more sophisticated with investing and just how things work and how to do things as smartly as I can. Sitting down and sharing that information with my mother, it was really nice to know that she too, and I think I probably get it from her, she wanted to take her money, the little bit that she has, and she wanted to invest, particularly during now when we're seeing a lot of violence. She wanted to make sure, I don't want to do anything that has any guns in it. So that's like one form of just really being mindful about how you give, how you invest, and how you support different things. So that spirit or that intention that she has, it also, it shows up through me. It also shows up through my son. So just really doing things that are meaningful and that are good.
Great. Mrs. Connor?
Yeah, for me, I decided a long time ago in my career that I was going to bring my whole self to work, and I wasn't going to make any edits. And maybe that could be the same or different from my male colleagues, but for me, what you see is what you get. I don't edit myself. And, you know, and what people see, yes, they see a Black female, but they get that I am a, you know, a baby sister, I'm a daughter, I'm you know, a mother of two, I'm a wife, I might be a binge watcher of Netflix, but I bring my whole self to work, you know, every day. And I want to see more women do that. I want them to feel comfortable in their skin, not feeling like they have to make any discount or changes to how they approach themselves in the workplace or anywhere. It's just important that we always show up as our full selves.
That's dope. Mrs. Shields.
I'm going to twist it. I know Miko talked a little bit about the consciously giving to causes that have social impact. A good example of how we do that with the foundation, we realized that there were over 400,000 residents in Atlanta that were underrepresented for the census. And they came to me and they said, Ms. Roberta, can you help invest in this? And I looked at the numbers and I said, if we spend this amount of dollars and we can get 10% of those 400,000 to fill out the census, that in itself would put $9.2 million into the community. People can go out and they can beg for money, but if we can just have conversations with individuals and let them know how important it is. And so we invested in some of the collateral, the door knockers that went on the door, some of the billboards that went on, and we made a difference. We got about 12% change. And so I think those are the conversations that we want to have, because that has a direct impact. And if we can have those conversations with those individuals at the barbershop that are saying, oh, I don't want to do that, you know, they're going to find out where you live. I'm like, they know where you live. You give away more than that on Facebook, okay? So having those conversations and helping individuals invest in themselves to invest in their community, that to me is impact.
And I also got to tell people, some people think they more important than they supposed to be. Like the feds ain't spending time to come get just, they don't even chase the cops. You think they're gonna chase you? Okay, so we're gonna, Mrs. Grant, I'm gonna ask you this question. What are some of the challenges women of color face in the industry of philanthropy?
I would say that it's been my experience in my career, and I would say it's one thing that I think Morehouse School of Medicine does very, very well, is that we are in a time where we have to move away from some of the traditional formats of how we do fundraising and how we do philanthropy, right? This is a time where we have to be strategic. We have to be able to pivot. We have to be in a position that we can really think about sustainability in our nonprofit base and in our sector, right? Because most nonprofits, they struggle with where the operational administrative funds come from. And I think that women leaders are very sensitive to that. And so being able to speak in formats that are not necessarily traditional and being able to have that voice and that voice be heard and accepted as the professional in that area and in that expertise, I think that is a challenge. Because people tend to stick to what they feel they know. And I think a lot of times your counterparts will feel that in their position that they may necessarily know best from a traditional standpoint. And I think women, again, are able to bring some of the different thoughts, right? And creative thoughts, especially as women of color, because our experience is different both in and out of the boardroom. And so I think that we are able to really kind of meet the perspectives of change. And so being able to really be able to voice that and have it with clarity accepted right out of the gate, I think that's a challenge right now in the industry for us.
Mrs. Wright, same question. Being a woman of color, what are the challenges you face in the industry?
Yeah, I think sometimes I would say our experience is undervalued. And I would also say oftentimes we talk about getting the proverbial seat at the table. And I think many of us have gotten to the table. The question is, how do we use that seat, and can we use that seat? And sometimes I find, as a woman of color, leading in certain spaces, one of my biggest challenges is thinking about how, at least from the seat that I sit in, how do you get capital and resources to leaders of color who are historically undercapitalized, not receiving resources at the same level as many of their white counterparts. And so one of the challenges is being a really strong internal partner, and sort of telling the story of leaders of color in the field and the sector doing all this great work, and being a really strong external partner to leaders of color and helping them access social capital in different pathways. So I would say that's probably one of the greatest challenges.
I got another question to all the women on the panel. I just want to put that out. Do you think we should stop saying people of color and just say Black? What do y'all think about that?
I don't think, I think we should always be respectful in how we refer to ourselves. So for some people, it's people of color. Some people like Black. Some people like African American. So I think I personally think they're all fine. I think it's contextual sometimes. So as long as we respect ourselves and what we're saying, I think there's some terms we should never use about ourselves. And I think we know what those are. So I think as long as it's respectful and in the correct context.
What do you mean? Angry? We shouldn't use those things? Because every time they talk about Black women, I'm doing this great movie here. It's called Sneakerella in Toronto. So I'll be calling you Jordan Brand. But okay. I'm doing this movie. And one of the things when they were auditioning for my wife, is they were talking about being a matriarch, but being, I think they were looking very stereotypical. I hope they weren't looking for angry. They weren't looking for upset. They weren't looking for a chip on the shoulder. I just thought that because as I read these questions, I see we dance around a lot. And what I've determined in my life is I'm not dancing around anymore. I'm Black and I'm African. I'm a descendant. So I just thought, I'm not putting anybody on the blast. I just thought I would let you guys know when I read questions, I see women of color, it kind of makes them feel better. And I'm tired of making them feel better. And when I'm talking about them, I'm talking about everybody that is afraid or has held us back, no matter the color. So I'm just thought I'd mention that since I had so many strong Black women on the panel, that I would get that point up. Okay, to the next.
And to that point, if I could push that point, John.
Yes, Ms. Blackburn.
When we walk into the room, people see a Black woman. So no matter what we're calling ourselves, that's how you show up. No matter what, you whatever your inner dialogue is. So it's unmistakable. So to your point, we got to embrace it. And I think all those terms do embrace it. I think women of color may be inclusive in some settings.
Good. Okay. This is the last question. Then I'm going to be taking questions from the audience. From the viewers. Hopefully you guys have questions that we didn't ask already, and make sure they're not long-winded because I will cut you off. Okay. The question, each of you are mentors in your own right. How do you inspire young women, young Black women, the importance of giving? And let's start with Ms. Shields.
How do I inspire young women with respect to giving? It is letting them know that they can give whatever it is that they have. That I think someone said, and I like that word, it's not treasure, so we can only give. We do something called My Empowerment with young girls. And we talk to them about their brand, and we talk to them about building their 1-minute elevator speech. But they talk about, these are my strengths, these are my values. And we will say to them, sometimes if you have a hard time finding out what your strengths are, ask your girlfriend. Because sometimes things come so easy to you that you don't really think of it as a strength. It's just who I am. and to watch them interact and give to each other. And they come back with the aha that I have value and I'm sharing that with someone else. And if it's a little young person, I talk to them about, sometimes we use big words like we say philanthropy, but I say to them, well, do you give $1 to the missions? Well, then you're a giver. You invest. And when you can do more, you will do more because your heart is already there. So pointing out to them the ways in which they are giving so that they can consciously do more of it is one of the ways that I think I help inspire young girls to value themselves and see the value that they give to others.
Okay, Ms. Blackburn.
Yeah, your talent and your time is critical. I mentor students interested in going to medical school. I help folks with their applications, with their interviews. So that's just time. It doesn't financially cost me anything, but it's a commitment I've made, and people call me all the time, and I love doing it. So it also comes from the heart. And to what Roberta said, your friends point out what your strengths are sometimes, and they say, Rose, you're really good at that. So then they send people to me, and that's fine because I love it. So I think, giving your time, and then your treasure, your resources. A lot of times people think of philanthropy as you have to be giving millions of dollars, which is always accepted, but it doesn't, a little bit goes a long way in philanthropy. So I started a family a scholarship at Morehouse in my family name. And it's not a lot, but the school is massive and I hope to grow it. So again, a little bit can go a long way. Because as I said, I remember being a student and, medical school, medical training, a physician assistant, these are long roads in training without a lot of resources. So I always align what I do and help people in different ways. So it may be an application, it may be a pep talk, it may be, okay, this is what you need to say on your interview. And then there's a financial piece. So the giving, the actual dollar giving, and that can grow as your career grows and progresses.
Okay. Mrs. Connor?
For me, it starts with my own children. My daughter, Layla, she's 7, and every 2 weeks she gets an allowance. It's not a lot, a few dollars here, but we give her 4 jars. So she has a jar for spending, she has a jar for savings, a jar for investing, and a jar for giving. And she has to divvy up a percentage of her allowance into those jars. But she gets the most excited about what she gets to give, because she gets to be creative and think about how she's going to spend that money to give to someone else. And so, you got to build the muscle early in order to, create that next generation of philanthropic leaders. Another way is obviously through mentorship and through sponsorship. That's very, very important to me. So, I'm very proud for the mentees that I do have. The biggest thing I say is I'm giving back to you and giving my time to you. Always think of how you can use your time and give back to those that are younger than you and looking up to you as well. Because you're never too young to mentor another young woman or, just young person in general. And then sponsorship, that's also another way of giving back, because I'm really focused now on how do I pull other Black women up through my organization. I really want to make sure that they, get the same experiences that I've had and beyond that, and the opportunities. And then you got to lead by example. So I sit on the board of the National Board of Friends of the Children, which is obviously, making sure that we're focusing on underserved youth. But then also within Jordan Brand, we have our National Wings program, which is aiming to, create a better future for underserved youth as well. So just making sure you lead by example and you continue to, impress upon those who are watching you and looking up to you to inspire them to do more and give back.
So, okay, this is the last question, and I'm going to start off with Ms. Branch. Is there a woman of color, is there a Black woman, a woman of color philanthropist that inspires you And if so, why?
I absolutely, hands down, I gotta give it to Madam C.J. Walker. There's so many similarities. When I told our dad, Jimmy Branch, that we really wanted to be serious, get more serious about this hair thing, he put a book in our hand and he put us on to Miss Madam C.J. Walker, her story, how she bootstrapped, how she did it herself. And not only was she a creator and became successful at it, she also spent equally, if not more, time in giving back to all the people who helped her get to where she was. So her spirit, her example is just, really, really prevalent in my life. So I would have to give it up to Miss Madam C.J. Walker.
I love you. And make sure you tell my boy I said that I was so gracious and wonderful to you today. But I've been with him a long time. You just was put into somebody that you inspire other people. So who inspires you?
Wow.
You can say John Sally, they know it.
Well, I always sound so business-minded when I say, when we first founded the foundation, I looked to business models to say, who is doing this very well? And I looked to Magic Johnson's organization, and they were doing it extremely well. I looked to Alonzo Mourning's organization, and they were doing it very well. And I feel like I'm having a senior moment because it was the women that were behind those organizations that inspired me. They put the infrastructure in solid. They shared with me, because when you start a celebrity foundation, the IRS is looking very closely at it. So I've had people who have helped me. Tracy Mourning, she's an amazing person. She gave me an aha. She had young girls come in, and she had maybe 12 ladies stand up. And one of them said that she'd had her child when she was 13 and 14, and she was a lawyer. And the stories went on like that. But when she introduced us, she said, this is a row of phenomenal women. And, I looked to my left and I looked to my right, and then I looked out at the audience. And so often we say to young ladies, be an adult, act like a lady. And Tracy looked at them and she said, this is what ladies look like. So Tracy Mourning, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to tell Tracy you said that.
Oh, that's my girl.
Yeah. Okay, ladies, I would like to thank you. We are now going to move over into some questions that Rochelle, who is no longer nervous, ladies. She's been sitting back there drinking martinis. She's going to, there's some questions, hopefully, from the audience. So go ahead, Rochelle.
Yes. Okay. Great job. Not only have I received several questions, but I've received a lot of comments from several audience members who is talking about how inspirational this panel has been. Your words have been powerful and inspiring to a lot of people who are watching. So, and I echo the same sentiments. I've learned a lot about each of you individually as a collective. The first question that came in, has COVID social unrest in the current political climate changed your philanthropy efforts? And if so, how? And it was open to anyone who was willing to answer. Iris, do you want to take that one first?
Absolutely, that's a great question. I will state for Morehouse School of Medicine, we've had to make a lot of critical adjustments. Not that we moved from the mission of health disparities, but of course, COVID-19 has exposed what we've always known, is that African Americans, populations of rural populations, and people of color have been severely impacted by health disparities and the social economic variances that then compile that. So with COVID-19, we not only had to look at the services that we were already providing, but we had to look at how we could engage. For example, in a clinical, telehealth went from, in a matter of 2 months, increased by 700%, right, of people that needed help and assistance and couldn't get to a physician. And so we had to, as a team and as an institution, really look at where we were and how we were engaging and how we were engaging our partners, strategically coming to the table and saying, this is how we were having conversation. Now this is the way we need to move with our students and with the communities that we're serving and with the physicians, the providers, our frontline workers, which were extraordinary. Students that wanted to come on campus, students that wanted to give and participate. All of those things were kind of made like a perfect storm in healthcare for us. And we had to respond, not just immediately, but also had to think about what's the level of engagement that will happen this winter and post-COVID-19. So there were, specifically for the Office of Institutional Advancement, there were a lot of changes and conversations that we had to adjust to. We had to then even elevate our voice for social impact and civic justice conversations. And I was very, very proud of the team and the institution within itself being able to take a bended knee, right, on so many levels of how we engaged and what we needed to do, and be at the forefront of that conversation, to be unapologetic as a Black institution, as an institution that provides, Morehouse School of Medicine provides 20% of the physicians globally.
Wow.
Really?
Right, so we're on that forefront, and I think Dr. Rice and the team have done an amazing job of not only carrying the daily mission, but elevating it and then taking on the impact of how COVID-19 is affecting the health, just even in Atlanta and nationally. A 700% rise, which has doubled for our clinics, of people calling and needing help and needing assistance. That elevates what we need to ask for. That elevates how we need to engage with partners, corporate and strategically. Our pipeline programs with children, like all of those things have been impacted. And so I'm very, very proud of how the institution has quickly been able to respond and think ahead about being able to predict what's going to happen and being prepared for that.
I can't wait to come into Morehouse School of Medicine and talk about nutrition and how nutrition has been a strong fight against any kind of disease, especially COVID, because most of the people who were dying, supposedly, who were dying had pre-existing condition, meaning what we call American diseases as diabetes, high blood pressure, or you mean all the stuff that Black people get from eating dead food and slave food. So when I come down to Morehouse, when I'm in Atlanta, and we have this conversation, hopefully the physicians and the teachers will also pay attention to the information. Now, in case I got to do this now, you can go on and check out me and two of my doctor friends, Dr. Columbus Batiste and Dr. Eric Walsh. We have a program called Slave Food. You can see it right there on YouTube. Punch in slave food, stop eating slave food. Okay.
We're
Next
gonna take
question,
you up on that,
Rochelle.
John. We're definitely gonna take you up on that.
And I will come down and speak for free, just like I'm doing now.
No. We're not gonna say you speaking for free.
Okay, I'll do it for a minimal fee of $25,000. No, don't worry about the money.
That's
Next
enough.
question,
That's enough to start an endowed scholarship.
It will. I'll come in there wearing my
committing.
Jordan brand Nikes and wearing a ludicrous sweatshirt.
Yes.
And I buy it all from Walmart.
Speaking of the Jordan brand, here, this question is actually for you. It was based off of your comment about not editing yourself. And the question is, speaking of how Black women are viewed, how would you suggest mitigating a situation in which I and my counterpart can say the same thing, but receive one reaction in corporate while my counterpart is emphasized with?
I missed that last part of that question.
Basically, how would you mitigate a situation in which I and my counterpart can say the same thing as a Black woman, but receive one reaction while our counterparts receive another one where they're more empathized?
No matter what, you're going to, however you show up and however you decide to conduct yourself in the workplace, everyone is going to receive you. They may receive you differently. They may receive another person differently. What I will say is, don't be so concerned with how individuals may be received versus yourself, versus staying the course and staying consistent and being confident in who you are. You know, as long as we're respectful, as long as we, respect the lines of our workplace, we treat people with respect, we treat people kind, we treat people with care. Just stay confident and consistent in how you show up and who you are. And I really don't think you need to, I always say this to people, I don't go home thinking about other people. I don't go home thinking about, what did they think or feel about how I said that in that meeting? Because at the end of the day, I feel good about how I showed up. I feel good about how I conducted myself. And that's the most important thing that you should ever worry about. What others do and say and how they're received is their situation and their scenario. But what you do is what's most important, and feel good about that.
Okay, next question.
Yes, this question was actually for Mrs. Shields and Mrs. Branch. What efforts do you think we should do to get more women of color or Black women who give philanthropically to also give politically, to give us more power?
I know for myself, recently I joined the Shirley Chisholm Cultural Institute, where I'm typically known for giving in the beauty space, giving products, giving time, talking about entrepreneurship, and also, giving money. But recently I joined this organization, the Shirley Chisholm Cultural Institute, to really speak to some important causes and matters that are happening. This organization is right here out of Brooklyn. That's where I am. That's where I built my business. I'm a native New Yorker. So I think with education and just being open to broadening what giving looks like to you can lead to maybe a little bit more political influence or making change there. I know it's happening for me, but because I'm so immersed in my business, I don't get a chance to get out that much and see what others are doing. But I know for me, it definitely feels like good work. There's a lot of vigor to it. We're just understanding what some of the things that are happening in this world, particularly in our communities, and the ways that I could help have a voice and maybe make change in it. In the end, has become really invigorating for me.
Okay. I don't know so much about having people give politically. I thought the end of that question was going to be, how do we get women of color to give more focused within our communities? And I know one of the things that the Walton Foundation is focusing on is just making more people of color, Black people, aware of the wonderful things that multiple organizations are doing across the country. I came into an event in Chicago, and grew up in Chicago, so I have a lot of friends. And it was on education, and we're focusing on helping our young people. And this virus has put our kids so far back. We've done some Zoom calls, and you've got kids who are babysitting their younger brothers and sisters. And so if you're watching those teachers, their kids are, getting breakfast for their younger brothers and sisters while they're trying to be on the calls. And one of the things that the Walton Foundation is doing is reaching out to people who give. And in Chicago, some of them said, well, I give to the museum because we've always given to the museum. But now that I know about these wonderful organizations that are working with our kids in education, because our kids are our future, they're wanting to shift those dollars to those organizations to help our young people get a better education. And we're making people aware of best practices, where they're doing it right, where they are leveling the educational field. So I'm going to answer that question in terms of, what are you doing to help organizations that are going to lift up our children, and that is making them aware of who's doing good in our neighborhood.
Okay. Well, last question, Rochelle.
Yes, this question is actually for Dr. Blackburn. Being that you are the only panelist that does not represent an institution, organization, or a foundation, what advice would you give to a young woman who is looking to grow in their ability to be a philanthropist, but don't have the capital and not sure where to start at investing?
I'll answer it in two ways, and emphasize one of the points I made earlier. I think you don't have to start with big dollar giving. So you align, you have a budget, whatever job, or even if you're in school, you have a budget. Figure out what you can give, and then align yourself with, what your interests are, where you're passionate. Obviously, I'm passionate about Morehouse. I'm passionate about my church. I'm in other women's organizations. I'm passionate about political giving. So these are the things I know and like. And then I do a lot of volunteer work. So you see other opportunities. So I would say start with what you like, what your interests are, where you volunteer, and in your community, and now a lot of, you don't even have to do something outside of your home. There's a lot of opportunities virtually to become involved in organizations. One of the good things that have come out of COVID is that a lot of things are virtual, which gives you a bigger reach. So I would, start small and then grow that. And it could be, joining or aligning with an organization that speaks to your passions and interests.
Wow.
Mr. Sally, there is a question for you.
Oh, okay.
The first question is, after listening to the women on the panel tonight, what stood out most to you as a man? That's the first question. And then the second question is, somebody wanted you to tell them more information, or where they can find more information about your food, your healthy food.
Okay. First, I'll second one first. You can go to johnsally.com. I have a vegetarian starter kit, which comes from PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. That's our lobbyist group out of DC. And you can also check us out on YouTube with Dr. Batiste and Dr. Welsh. Slave food, straight up slave food. And it's not making fun of us. It's one, talking about the way we eat food as Blacks who were enslaved, who our ancestors were enslaved, and what we were given. And two, now that we don't have to eat those things, how we are still a slave to food and slave to something else, not paying attention, not being in control. So that's the first thing. And if you ever come to California, I own Cafe Organics with my two partners. Organics with an X on the end, and it's really good. We got some Cajun food, we got some burgers. I did everything that we would definitely have, along with Black art on the wall and a nice range of coffee house hip hop. So I have a Black Starbucks, just I have better coffee and better pastries. I'm telling you. Second, what did I think about being on the stage as women? If you know anything about me, I'd rather be around women anyway. Men usually want you to hunt and they play video games. I don't. I read books, smoke cannabis, and I know about wine. So I'd rather be around people who deal with that. Being around these wonderful women, me having daughters that I raise, I always push them to look at things that are very important. Is why I'm not dissing the movie of Madam C.J. Walker. I'm telling you to read the book. Because one, it enhances your brain. Two, it's not bastardized or it's not whitewashed like the movie was. I didn't mean to say that. There's so many things. My mother was born, she passed this year, but she was born in 1923. My mentality, she had me at 41 years old. So you understand, I was around a very strong woman, and I don't recommend it. I don't recommend not being around a woman. I don't recommend not seeing them as strong. Women have 400 trillion more emotions than men. Women are, according to the way they think, Black women don't have pain. in surgery. So just knowing that that is a thought process on this original humanoid that started the human race, I just think it's great. And somebody said I did not answer my question. I did. Ladies, I would like to thank Dr. Rose Blackburn, Miko Branch, Carrie Connor, Iris Grant, Roberta Shields, and Melinda Wright, and also thank Christy for doing a great introduction to me, and James Hammond for making sure this all went well. And Rochelle, guess what? It happened. It was great. This is so bomb. Everybody join us on YouTube. Check us out for the next thing. Go to johnsally.com. And as I always say in departing, vibrations. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Hold on,
Thank
panelists,
you.
1 second.
All
Hold on.
right.